All right. Make
We
up for
got
some
lots
lost
of ground to
time.
cover, but
The
nothing.
same 10 minutes repeated over and over and over.
It's like epic sax. 10 hours of epic sax.
Damn it.
Oh, Rich just screwed it up.
No, I didn't.
Here we
It just
go.
Audacity went to a different window for a second. I'm like, wait, how did that stop?
You got the right microphone working there, Richard?
Can you hear me speaking like I'm talking to a microphone?
You sound beautiful.
Ha! Oh, yeah. All right.
But I don't think there's a microphone invented that could stop that.
That's true.
All right, let's give this a clap.
Okay.
Christ.
3, 2, 1. Sure, I'll go with that.
Perfect.
I don't know what CJ hears every time that happens, so I'm just going to assume that whatever I just heard was the right thing.
An angel gets its wings. That's what happens.
Every time CJ gets the clap, an angel gets its wings.
And
It's in San Francisco, so...
the heavenly host is multiplying exponentially then.
Okay. Hello and welcome to episode 434 of the Player One podcast for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015. I'm your host, Greg Seward, because CJ is a slacker and decided that he can't broadcast from the other side of the country, so screw him. Joining me, as always, is not Phil Theobald, because he got a better offer. But we do have the rare, the much beloved Michael J. Phillips.
Michael S. Here's a funny note about me that everybody loves to laugh at me for. It didn't used to be funny until a few years ago when there was a television character named Michael Scott. And now every time someone sees my middle name, they make fun of me endlessly for being named Michael Scott.
Is it bad that I don't know that character?
Yes.
What was the...
The Office. The United States of America
I've
version
never
of
watched
The
the
Office.
United States version of The Office.
Well,
It's a shame. It's a funny
have you
show.
watched the UK version?
No.
Oh, for fuck's sake. All right, well, I was about to exonerate you, but since you haven't watched the UK version either, it's rescinded.
All I have to do,
You're
Mike,
a
all I
bastard.
have to say is the only person that's excited about the upcoming season of Mad Men, as you are, is me.
Yeah, I am
So,
excited about that.
there
The
you go.
upcoming half season.
Yeah, that we've waited over a year
Bunch of
for
bullcrap. Yep.
for no good
Hi.
reason.
Also, what was the better offer that Phil got? As I understand, it's one finger each from Greg Ford and Seabake. Is that accurate?
And Ethan Einhorn,
Oh, man. The trifecta.
Sega's own Ethan Einhorn.
3 fingers.
So they've got more fingers than Orify, so that's going to be...
Well, the old adage is if it feels like more than 2 fingers, it's probably a dick.
All right, starting this show off on the right foot.
Sorry.
And of course, our rotating fourth chair, making his appearance as a third chair this week, Internet's Rich Grisham.
I am excited to be here. My pop culture name reference, which was endlessly used to less and less humor every time, was Griswold. I was,
Yeah, that's not good.
yeah, no, never good to hear Griswold yelled whenever.
Did anyone ever call you Rick or Ricky?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are they still alive?
Not by my choice, nor did I answer to it. But
So
yes.
we would be in trouble if we just started referring to you as old Ricky Grish.
Because we're going to be honest, when you're not here, that's how we talk about it.
This show is so good, you can refer to me however you like. This is the
Wow.
Player One podcast.
All right. Thanks very
You know, I was
much
just
for that,
thinking-
Nancy.
The combined age of the three hosts here is greater than
Oh, let's not even get
probably the
started on
combined
that.
age of all the listeners.
Probably.
I love that you got your
Both of them.
You look like you just need a hat to put on backwards, and you look like a high school guidance
A
counselor.
boyish little fop. I know.
Yeah, it's like let's rap for a second, guys. Let's rap about drugs. And
Let me be comfortable when I podcast, for God's sake. It's been a while.
You want a beer? I know you're underage, but you know it'll help us connect.
Terrible.
I'm just like you. Anyway. Yeah, so CJ's not here this week, so this show is going to be a clusterfuck of epic proportions.
We're off to a good start.
We are off to a good start. Mike's got his knees up around his ears.
I'll put my knees down, Jesus.
No, that's all right. I enjoy it. I like those acid wash jeans. I haven't seen those in 20 years.
He's got me a ton of puss at the Def Leppard concert. Don't make fun of him.
They're the same jeans. They've never been washed. My lucky jeans.
You know what that tells you, though?
What?
You ready to be jealous? That means I have the same waist size now as I did in high school. So
I am jealous. Well, you know what? So do I. Screw you.
All right, then.
All right. So usually, CJ starts off the show with some news tidbits, which he didn't put in the outline and I didn't do. So we're, let's talk about. So I'm interested to hear Mike's opinion on this again because I know we touched on it a little bit the last time you were here, like 3 months ago. Rock Band and Guitar Hero apparently making a comeback in 2015. Are we just like? Is this the plastic instrument apocalypse all over again, or?
I'll take them. I mean, it's
Really?
Have you tried to find a plastic instrument lately? It is nigh impossible.
They're all
you
in my
have
face.
to order it online if you need a replacement of any sort, which is kind of a drag. But I'm totally ready for those again. Absolutely.
So you're gonna buy all new instruments because you know you're gonna have to.
Yeah, that is the thing that's kind of a bummer about it is you know that you will have to buy new instruments. But I still play those games on old consoles, so I would be very happy to have them on new consoles. In fact, that might be the last game that I play on old consoles. I can't think of anything else that I still play on the PS3 other than Rock Band Beatles and Rock Band Green Day with my kids. So
You should be
I
playing
would like
Bully,
to have them on.
by the way.
I've played Bully a couple times before.
No, I mean currently.
Oh, okay. I'll
For
get
the
to
big
work
game
on
club that our patrons paid for.
that. All right. Way to derail your own topic, but sure, I'll take care of that.
I just heard something that was concerning, and I wanted to take care of it right away.
I do like the idea that you guys brought up of it being more of a service than a piece of software that you get, and I'm guessing that Rich likes that too because he wants all games to be a service at this point.
That is
But
true.
That makes a whole lot of sense to me. If you could buy whichever instrument you want and then go a la carte, I think that would be
Fantastic.
favorable. Yeah, in fact, I think there are a lot of games that could benefit from that. I remember when they were talking about Gran Turismo possibly going that route, and I would absolutely buy Gran Turismo in that form too. Just buy it on a track-by-track and car-by-car basis. I would totally do that.
For what it's worth, I mean, Kazunori Yamauchi talked to me in an interview about that in like 2002, saying that that's exactly how he wanted that series to go. I mean, here
They
we
would
are,
probably
13
make
years later.
more money.
I think they would too, because they churn out content like nobody's business. There was actually an update
Yeah.
again this week.
Yeah, the amount of shit that they give away for free, if they charged 50 cents a piece for that stuff, there would be
Oh
enough,
my God.
enough people that bought it to make them a grundle of cash.
Yeah, I mean the amount of work that goes into it, just those little documentaries alone, let alone the actual rendering the car and the physics and all that. So
Yep.
So are you suggesting that you would prefer that to be, and I don't use the word in a pejorative sense, but like a freemium thing where you get sort of a
Kind
base
of.
game? Okay.
Yeah, I would go for that.
for Rock Band, I definitely do. For GT, honestly, I don't, because right now for $60 you get a stupid amount of content.
Yeah.
And you never have to spend another dime.
Yeah, I mean,
So, I
from
mean-
the consumer's perspective, sure, I would like to take it all free. And,
Yeah.
Assuming that they continue that trajectory with all the rest of their titles, then yes, absolutely, I'll take it all for free. But if they were to come out and say, Gran Turismo is free, you buy tracks on a as needed basis, then I would totally do that.
Yeah, me too.
Hang on one sec.
Well, you would need to have some sort of base game that would. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like Forza 5, right? When that launched, that had so little to
guess-
start.
The thing is that if you have a base game, it's got to be priced accordingly. It can't
Right.
be priced at $70 or $60.
But on the other hand, I can't imagine releasing even the most base version of Gran Turismo for free. Like, there's just too much there. Even like Prologue back, on the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Prologue wasn't free, right? You had to pay
No.
for that.
Yep.
So I think something like that. There's just so much that goes into establishing the base game for it to be free. I don't know how that would work. I mean, obviously, with any freemium model, you make your money off of the 2 to 5% who spend the vast majority of the money. And I would assume, Greg Stewart, there are people out there who love racing games so much, Greg Seward, that would probably wind up spending a lot of money on additional tracks if the base game were free, Greg Seward. But I just don't know for sure that there are enough of those people out there to make that work. When the base game for something as complex and as frankly as beautiful as Gran Turismo, then there's so much to that.
Yeah. So I mean, with the current setup that they have, it definitely would not be more consumer friendly for them to go as a service. But I think it would make much more sense from a business standpoint. With Rock Band, far more consumer friendly to go with it as a service. You know, don't make me buy 60 songs I don't necessarily want, and an instrument and all this crap. Like what Mike said, just let me go up and buy the guitar if that's what I want. Well, and just download the songs. Give me the shell that I can download the songs, and you know, I'll pay you for what I want.
I mean, that's the music industry that we're in now, like the real music industry, right? I mean, I rarely buy. It's weird. I don't use Spotify very much. I don't use Pandora very much. I just don't feel like, for Spotify, I'm just not sitting in front of a computer enough to where spending the money would be worth it. I'm in motion a lot, and I just, plus with the data and stuff. So I actually tend to buy songs from iTunes so that I can sort of listen to them anywhere and everywhere exactly on demand.
That's weird, by the way.
Why is that weird?
Because Spotify.
But sometimes I'm not connected to the internet and I still want to hear the songs that I like.
Yeah, but you can have offline playlists.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can mark as many songs as you want to be offline, and it will download them to your device.
How much is that service a month?
$9.99.
That's like $9.98 too much.
But I've got many thousands of songs in my iTunes account already. It's like to make that shift, then I'd all of a sudden have two places to go for music, and now you're just crazy talk. Two places.
But I'll bet all of those songs that you have on iTunes would be accessible to you on Spotify. This is not the Spotify podcast.
No, this is fun. Keep going.
Well, my point is
let's see two old men fight.
My point is that I think with Rock Band especially, like the concept, the way that people listen and consume music today is very much I want to choose only what I want to listen to, and I think with Rock Band, if you force a bunch of music on somebody in the base game that they don't necessarily like, I think that does not feel like the way that people consume music. I don't think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Moving on, the only other thing that I have on this list right now is more for me than anyone else, but so people probably remember Sonic X-treme, the Sonic game that never came out for the Saturn. It was shown a few times. It was supposed to be the first time Sonic was ever a 3D game, and got canceled eventually, and just never came out. But as of this week, you can play a level of Sonic X-treme on your PC, on your Windows PC. And it's awful. It is. That game was not going to work in 3D. Now it is a build. It's not final, obviously. But basically what happened is somebody, and I have the page here somewhere, came into possession of a bunch of code from, what was it? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the company that was doing a lot of the coding work, and they'd created the engine. Point of View was the name of the company, Point of View, which I think is gone now. But this person had found a bunch of code, had come into possession of a bunch of code, and there was a project that was started, I think, about a year ago, that they wanted to get this running because, of course, which I don't know if a lot of people know, but when you're creating a console game, it doesn't run on the console from the start. It doesn't always run on the console while you're building it. Most of the time, you have a PC build, just because it's easier to, you don't need to have expensive dev stations at everybody's desk, and when you want to run a build, you don't want to necessarily have to have that expensive dev station in your conference room either. So they took this PC build and they basically fixed it so that it would run on modern PCs. There's a few rendering issues, and it's running at a much higher resolution than it would on the Saturn. But you can play Sonic X-treme right now on your Windows PC.
But you wouldn't want to, is what I
No.
mean.
No. It is not.
Tell me all about it.
It reminds me, does anyone remember Bug, the game Bug for the Saturn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Bug was a platformer, technically, but it was a 3D platform, and the way that it worked is you had single lane paths that would go left to right and in and out of the screen, and up and down and all that sort of thing. And it wasn't great. This looks a lot like that. It reminds me a lot of that. You have some more wide open areas because it's Sonic, but it's still very much, it's still very much a hard angle, geometric shapes everywhere. You have to roll into a ball, and you can make the world tilt, like you can make gravity change, spin the world around a little bit. But otherwise, it's just Sonic, and it feels like he's floating over. Because he has to move fast, it just feels like he's floating over the terrain. So, but it is still kind of cool because it's one of those games it's been around a long time. People have been talking about it, and get to finally see a little bit of what they were trying for. Which is kind of neat. Sort of the beginning of the downfall of Sega, really, when you think about it.
It's like a history lesson while looking at the at the Western Front in 1914. It's like they had all the momentum, and then they made one bad decision, followed by 25 bad decisions, and then 4 years later, things weren't looking so good.
Well, it was funny because there was also an interview this week from with Tom Kalinske. Actually, it wasn't an interview; it was a talk that he gave at some convention, of course, he was the head of Sega of America during the Genesis heyday, and he finally came out and said what people have been waiting for him to say for years, which is ever since the Saturn, Sega's just been making one terrible decision after another, business-wise. So everybody knew that, but it was kind of interesting to hear him say it finally. That's all I really have for news tidbits. Do you guys have anything to add?
I have something.
Okay.
There has been a continual talk and news coming out more and more about virtual reality headsets and such.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not sure if you saw, Valve recently had a big announcement with HTC. Obviously, Sony's working on Morpheus. You got Oculus Rift. What I wanted to take the temperature of the Player One podcast as it pertains to VR. Are you all in day one? Are you cautious? Obviously, price is a big deal, but with all now you got like 3 competing technologies. Where do you stand on your excitement level and willingness to go out and get a VR machine when the first one becomes available?
Beyond driving and flying games, I still can't figure out a game that I would like for a VR headset. Now, I would love it for driving and flying games, and that might be enough, but that would depend on the number of driving and flying games that were available for it. But for things like shooters and things like that, I still don't understand how that works.
Do they even make flying games anymore? What was the last flying game?
Not very
PC.
often.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember Frontier released Elite Dangerous, which is considered one of the best experiences you can have in the Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
For really good reason. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with Mike. I mean,
those make sense. A VR headset is like being in a
Right.
cockpit. It's not like walking around because you're still using joysticks, and that whole idea of
disorienting.
turning your head, but then in order to turn all the way around, you have to use your thumb to do that is weird. That doesn't make any sense. It completely destroys the purpose of the headset. But being in something where your field of view can be totally simulated by that headset, then it's great. And that's why I think driving and flying games would be fantastic for it. But otherwise, I'm not sure.
Now, you've had some decent experience with various VR tech, right, Greg?
Well, just the Oculus Rift, really.
And so if the Oculus Rift is available, are you going out and getting it day one, do you think?
No, based on price. And there's another problem that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, although every now and then you'll see an article written about this. And it was actually brought up in an interview with the head of Frontier, who created Elite, and David Braben, is his name. And he pointed out that the thing that people aren't talking about with VR helmets and technology is they're incredibly isolating. And that's not necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily what people want. I mean, I think about just my life, and I mean, we all have kids. I'm not sure that me being able to completely immerse myself in something like that, to the detriment of everyone around me, is ever going to work.
That's true.
That being said, like if Gran Turismo came out. Gran Turismo 7 comes out, and it's got Orpheus support. It's going to be tough if the Orpheus is priced well enough. It'll be tough for me to avoid that because that's exactly it. I want it for driving games. I've played.
Yeah,
I've
man,
played
that
Elite
plus
with
a
it.
steering wheel. Holy shit!
Oh my
that
God.
would be.
That's just it. Like if you have a cockpit set up, which when you play Elite with Oculus Rift, it's the same thing you need, right? You got to have like
Right.
a cockpit setup. But my God, it's such an amazing experience when you do. And driving would be the exact same way, and it would alleviate the big problem that I think a lot of more hardcore racers have, which is your field of view is terrible in driving games, and you don't have free movement. And when you drive your car, if you're not a crappy driver, your head's constantly moving back and forth. You're constantly
Right.
checking your blind spots, and you're
Yelling at
looking
you.
into the turn when you're going. You know, if you're going that direction, that's where you're looking, and you can't do any of that in a video game right now.
Yeah, games have tried to simulate that, but what they can't simulate is that you actually have peripheral vision when you move
Right.
your head. And
Yeah,
so
I'm
there's
always
no real
seeing-
solution for that.
I'm always seeing the edge of my screen.
Yep.
So I'm totally excited about that, but price is a factor, and again, just the isolation of it does not appeal to me.
Yeah. Well, just like price, definitely, just like any piece of hardware, price and the number of available titles for it are both kind of a huge deal.
Are you surprised that Valve has also entered the market and are saying it's going to be available by the end of the year? Do you think the market can support 3 virtual reality machines for 3 different platforms?
I don't believe Valve when they tell me when something is coming out, for one thing.
No.
That is very true, yes. Good point. Good point.
And I'm also interested to see, I mean, with Oculus, obviously, there's the Facebook connection, and I still
Right.
haven't figured out how that's going to work.
The coolest thing I've heard had nothing to do with video games. It was a way to, and obviously people are just, when they talk about this stuff, they are literally talking, they're just creating fake hype. That's what they do. But the coolest idea I heard anybody ever say was, oh, this is a new way to go to like an NBA game. I was thinking, well, that sounds really great. I would love a courtside seat for an NBA game without having to pay for the courtside seat for an NBA game and also not have to drive to said arena. I mean, things like that, like being able to go to events without having to go to the events, to me, sounds like the best idea of any of this stuff.
That's not a bad thought,
That could
really.
be neat.
Yeah. It's just kind of like when they were trying to get 3D television to take hold, sports was kind of one of the linchpins, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. That's why I bought an HDTV.
Yeah, it always sucked to me because when I bought a 3D TV, I was kind of looking forward to it. I went into Best Buy and they had like a soccer match going in 3D, and it's like this is really incredible. It added a lot.
Yeah.
But it never, around here, we never got to the point where they broadcast any of that stuff, which was a shame. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. That is an interesting thought, though. I wouldn't mind trying that out. Excuse me. The other thing, too, with the VR helmets is you also have Microsoft doing their own thing.
That's 4 then. Right?
Which is but it's not a VR helmet. HoloLens is a a little bit different.
Right. Oh, that's
It's
true.
augmented reality.
No, it's
So-
the same as Valve's in that neither one of them are going to come out. So they're really very similar in approach.
Nice.
Valve has a strong record of delivering on time.
Mhm.
every
I'm
one
enjoying
of
my Steam controller and my Steam box and my whatever. And what was the other thing that Microsoft had recently? The Illuma Room or something like that?
That
It
thing
It actually
so
looked pretty
awesome.
cool.
That thing looks so
I
cool.
totally wanted that, but then that disappeared.
As long as
Just
you
like-
have a completely square room with nothing but white walls with the exact proportions, you are good.
That's how most institutions are set up.
I
Nice.
tell you, we get some people though, not nearly enough, but you get some people who'd be like, all right, I'll go down my finished basement, put up a wall, and create that stuff. You know how some of those crazy rich people are setting up movie theaters in their rooms. I mean, if they had the tech, they would get some people to
You're goddamn
do
right.
that kind of stuff.
I would do that in a second. Okay. Anything else from you fine gentlemen as far as news goes?
I
will
mean,
take your silence as
A lot has happened since Mike has been on the show. Websites
I know.
have
Do you want to
closed
talk
down.
about Christmas, Mike? Or...
No.
Okay. Let's move into what you've been playing. And Mike, you're up first.
I'm playing stuff that you guys have probably already beaten to death, but let's give it a shot anyway, because
I always like to hear your opinions on things.
It's been a long time since I bought a full-price $60 retail game. In fact, it's been since last fall, maybe November, October. When did Far Cry come out? It was probably been since Far Cry came out that I spent $60 on a game.
That is also the last $60 game I have purchased as well.
Yeah. So, and I think that I said on one of the last episodes I was on that I was sort of sick of the whole open world, here are 5 million things to do, now go do them approach, and really craved a linear story-based game that would just sort of guide me by the nose through the experience. So I spent $60 on The Order, obviously, because why wouldn't you? Despite the reviews, I mean, the criticisms that I was reading of it were essentially the things that I was looking for in a game. And interestingly, because I listen to every podcast ever, I've listened to some talking about the game, and one of them, specifically the Bombcast, they were saying that this game kind of represents game design of like 7 years ago, and it's an anomaly now, and this kind of game isn't going to exist anymore because we need these open world environments where you have emergent gameplay and any of the other buzzwords that you want to throw in there. And that made me really sad and confused because I don't know if they know that Uncharted is coming out. But I would hate for this type of game to disappear because every once in a while I just want to be led through a story, whether it's a fantastic story or not. I just want something kind of linear and story-based and not just dropping me in a world and turning me loose on it.
Preach it, brother. Preach it.
Now, the game is not very good, is the thing. It's okay. It is everything it does just fine. Like, I don't know. I've heard it derided for not having combat mechanics that are as good as Gears of War, which may or may not be the case. It plays very much like Gears of War to me. The thing that is actually bothering me about it, and I hear people complain all the time about Uncharted combat, and usually that's because they're trying to just stay behind cover and shoot, and that ends up really fucking you over in Uncharted. And the reason that I like the combat in Uncharted is because it encourages you to improvise and move around and use all sorts of different combat techniques and traverse the landscape and use melee and use grenades and just constantly be changing up what you're doing. In this game, it really just wants you to play Mad Dog McCree. And Mad Dog McCree is kind of awesome, but it's not exactly what I want in 2015.
I believe that is the first time I've ever heard Mad Dog McCree referred to as kind of awesome.
You didn't like Mad Dog McCree? It
was all right.
I used to effing love Mad Dog McCree.
There was no Lethal Enforcers.
Lethal Enforcers, any light gun game is awesome, but don't you feel that like most of these third-person shooters sort of feel that same way? You're crouched behind cover and you just wait for the guy. He pops out, you shoot. He pops back in, you wait. He pops back out, you shoot, and you do that for 10 minutes.
I can see what you're saying there, yeah.
And that's really the problem that I have with the game is there's just not enough other stuff to break it up. Like between combat scenarios in a game like Uncharted, there are things to do. Getting from point A to point B in Uncharted is fun. Getting from point A to point B in The Order is just you walking down a hallway. And walking down a hallway in a game ain't all that entertaining. And that's mostly what you do. It's like the pieces in between the combat in this game are just not interesting. There's not enough to do, I don't think. But just for the spectacle and just for the visuals and the kind of fit and finish that the game has, everything is freaking perfect in this game in terms of the way it looks and how tight everything is and the way it plays. All of that is just great. It's just that the gameplay itself is not particularly interesting. However, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be, and so it's fine. It's, I definitely prefer it when a game surprises me, but getting exactly what I expected and exactly what I paid for is not such a bad thing.
Does the story hook you? I mean, are you interested in what is happening? Doing stuff?
I'm about 3 hours into the game, which is the point where I decided, I'm going to listen to podcasts instead of this story.
So it did hook you.
So the story is there are werewolves and you may want to shoot them if you got nothing else to do. That's
Okay.
a summary. That's my brief summary of the story. The story is not great. So it was banal enough that I felt like I would rather listen to someone talk about video games while I played a video game than listen to the video game tell me the story of the video game while I played the video game.
You know, it's so funny you say that, Mike, because, you know, I play a lot of games while I'm on the treadmill. And so when you're walking at a brisk pace on the treadmill, you can't really pay attention to a lot of nuance,
Right.
detail of story. So I tend to play sports games, racing games, you know, the kind of things where you don't really need to pay attention, you know, and exactly what you do, listen to podcasts or music or something like that. So
Sure.
it sounds as if I were going to play this game, it would be a great treadmill game as opposed
I think
to
so.
sit down and focus on what's going on.
I think just enjoying the visuals and the spectacle and enjoying the shooting, which is enjoyable, is enough. But the story, it's not. I mean, there's like Vonnegut, and then way down here in the basement, you got Dan Brown, and then kind of wiping Dan Brown's ass, you have whatever is going on here.
Did you
Not
put that
a-
on the box?
Wow, not a fan of Angels and Demons, I guess.
Dan Brown is horrible. Let's be real.
Better or worse than 50 Shades of Grey?
There's a lot less sex, so worse.
To this day, one of my favorite Mike Phillips things was when he and Pete Dodd did a show of show, and to introduce, I think, every game of one of their top 10 lists, Mike read a passage from 50 Shades of Grey.
Right.
I don't think I've ever laughed as much at a show ever.
Well, you missed the video podcast where we reenacted segments of 50
my.
Shades of Grey. And if you've never seen me with a writing crop up my butt, you are missing out.
Really? So Pete was Mr. Grey?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't expect that. I gotta be honest.
It's a pretty good game. I like it. It's exactly what I wanted. And, is it worth $60? Probably not, but I hadn't spent $60 in a game in a long time, and I was in the mood for it, and it gave me exactly what I wanted for $60.
Nice.
Can't ask for anything. Well, you can't ask for a lot more than that, but can't complain about that.
Now, do you want a sequel? Is there something there that you think can be expanded upon?
I'm not finished with it yet, but if they do a game that is equally polished as this, but then expands on the gameplay in a way that makes it more entertaining, sure. Why
Like
not?
even though the story is obviously not good, like just the setting, the lore, could somebody, not Dan Brown, but could somebody do something with it, do you think? Is there enough there
Maybe.
to where it could be?
I mean, what might be more entertaining is, so Nikola Tesla is a character in the game, and he's one of the guys who's providing the technology to these dudes, these
Right.
knights of the round. And some of the guns, or a couple of the guns, not some, a couple of them are actually really interesting in this is almost like Ratchet and Clank kind of way. So if the story were equally shitty, and the gameplay were equally kind of mundane, but all of the weapons were crazy, that would be enough to get me interested in the sequel. And in this game, there are really only one or two weapons that are like eyebrow raising, but they're eyebrow raising in a way that Ratchet and Clank weapons are kind of fun and interesting and unique. And if they did more of that, then I could definitely be interested in that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
How long was this game in development? I mean, it's been
Like 3
It
years.
seems like
3 years.
ages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's one of the things that is one of the major hits against it is that everyone knows it's been in development for a long time, and they're kind of saying like, "This is what we got."
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was interested in when you guys were talking last week, talking about would it have done better had it sold at a $40 price point instead of a $60 price point, and I just do not think that the math works out on that at all.
No.
I don't think that dropping it to $40 means you sell 3 million instead of 2 million, and that if you sold 3 million instead of 2 million, it would be exactly the same. You would have to sell more than 1 million more in that scenario in order to make up the difference in the cost reduction. So I don't see that happening. But I can't imagine how much this game took to make. It's one of those, like sometimes you watch a movie and you can sort of see every dollar that they spent on screen. You can definitely see that in this game. Like every wrinkle of every fabric and every texture and everything is just so meticulously combed over that alone is impressive enough, I think, to play through it and just sort of respect the attention to detail on display there, even if it's not in service of the best game ever.
Right, which is what makes it a little bit more of a shame that it didn't come out earlier, because if it came out very soon after the launch of the system, you kind of had that showpiece thing going.
Right. I mean, in a lot of ways,
it can do.
It totally has that sort of launch game feel to it, just because there's nothing new happening in the game, but holy shit, does it show off the hardware.
Right. Yeah, which is important at the beginning of a system cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Weird that it took 2 years to get that, but whatever.
What else you got there, Mike?
The only other thing, even remotely new, I don't know if you guys have even talked about this yet, that I've been playing is Life is Strange, and I think it's weird that you guys have not talked about this because you're going to be talking about it when we get to our Game of the Year awards. Just letting you know.
It's March.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, but if you were not aware, I don't play episodic games until they're all done and released, so I can binge watch them. So,
well, episode 2 comes out this month.
Oh, nice.
And I
How
can't
many
remember,
episodes are there going to be?
I think there are 5. And I bought the whole season just based on the trailer because it is one of those games that is unique enough in premise that it's like, okay, well, I'm going to like this just because it's not like anything else that I have played in a long time.
Who makes this game? This is not obviously it's not Telltale. Like, who's making this?
No, I think it is the same team that made Remember Me, although it is not the same publisher.
Square is the publisher, isn't it?
Possibly. I actually don't even know. I mean, this was not based on developer reputation or anything other than just watching the trailer and saying, okay, this looks cool. So it's by Don't Nod Entertainment, and it is published by Square Enix. And previously, Don't Nod did Remember Me. So that's really their only other game.
Did you play Remember Me, either of you guys?
I did. I really liked Remember Me.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. That was near the end of the generation, right? When that.
Yes, I played it on the PC, but yeah, it was near the end of the generation, and I think it was free on PlayStation Plus for a while.
I think you're right. And I don't think I was. I think I missed out on that somehow, which is weird.
Worth playing. But Life is Strange, I can almost guarantee that you would like it, Greg, just because it is essentially a graphic adventure, point and click kind of thing. This generation's version of that, basically.
I played the demo, and it's funny. I think actually the reason that I didn't talk about it on the show was because I was waiting for you to come back, because I knew that you would be, if of anybody, those other 2 idiots on the show would never play it, but if anybody would, you were going to. And then I kind of forgot about it. But when I played the demo, I really did like it, and the only reason that I haven't grabbed it is kind of what Rich is saying. I'm really leery of the episodic game.
Sure. That's totally justified. I've been burned enough times by that I should have known better than to buy the whole season, but I did it anyway.
Right, and it's just kind of it's backed up behind other games that I really, really want to get into a couple of the games before I play that. But what I did play of it, I really like the setting. I really like the visuals look great.
Mm-hmm.
The premise is really great, and weirdly enough, I really loved that there was so much. It was so granular.
Yeah.
Like you could just go in and read her notebook.
Right.
Or
there's tons of cool detail to it.
On it. Yeah. So no, I really, really dug what I saw when I played. I mean, with the demo, did you play the demo?
I did not play the demo. I just bought it.
The demo kind of takes you to the first event that you have to fix. I don't know if it's actually the first event in the game, because I don't know if the game's starting off there. I think it is, because I believe that it tells you if you buy the game now, you can continue your progress.
Oh, well then probably. Like she has a dream, right, and sees like a tornado.
Yeah.
In the distance. Yeah, that's one of the very first parts.
And you get to the bathroom.
Yep.
See it in the bathroom.
Yep.
So it introduces, because the time travel is a thing, which also is why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I know you don't.
It's not exactly time travel. She's able to rewind time, basically. And it does that in itself is kind of interesting, because anytime you play one of these games where you're making choices and they impact the game, the second you choose something, you think, oh shit, I wonder what would have happened if I had chosen the other thing.
Right.
And the way this game approaches that really makes that even more agonizing, because you can make a choice and then the character will instantly second guess herself.
Right.
And at that moment, you can rewind and make the other choice.
But now
And so you'll make the other choice,
stay with the other one?
and she will instantly second guess herself again.
Man.
So it's like no matter what you choose, it's like, oh, I wonder what would have happened had I chosen the other thing. And that really works well on me for some reason. Like I'll waffle and go back and forth 4 or 5 times before I finally take a course of action, and it's ridiculous, but it's pretty cool.
What are you playing it on, PC?
I'm on the PS4.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Is
And
it
it's,
only on
no, I think it's on PS4, PS3, Xbox. I think it's on pretty much everything.
You're right. It's on everything, Windows and everything.
Yeah. So, and there are not very many games where you play as a female high school photography student.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any.
Persona?
Maybe, how about
Persona.
Beyond Good and Evil? Maybe she's a photography student. I don't know.
Young Good and Evil. That was a great.
Anyway, it's really cool. Like
Nice.
the references to fine art and photography are things that I totally eat up because that's my background, and
It's all you.
I don't know. All of it. The soundtrack I think is really cool. The whole thing so far really just hits me just right. And if the subsequent episodes keep it up, you'll definitely hear me talking about it the end of the year for sure.
Maybe I'll have to get it so we can at least talk about it together, because that was something that I was bummed that we didn't do with The Wolf Among Us.
Well,
Yeah.
Mike is violating all sorts of rules by pre-ordering the whole year. You know, and he's time travel games, even though it's not time travel. A lot of justification. I might have to just jump in on this too.
It is a very Mike Phillips game. I don't know if that is a warning or a recommendation. It is a very me game.
We could bring that back, the patented Mike Phillips spoiler cast.
Oh,
Yes,
how
doing
about that?
Those were fun, man.
Yeah, I like
All
this.
right.
And sort of contrary to the order, while it does look good, it is not a technical marvel. In fact, a lot of people have complained that the lip syncing does not match. They don't even fucking try to make the lip syncing match. There's not even a token attempt to make the lip syncing match, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, better performances that way anyway.
Yeah, it's really good. I recommend it to anybody who likes adventure games. It's good stuff.
Fantastic. I might have to dive into that. I'm not good. I've really got nothing that I haven't been playing for the last 3 weeks. So, although I will say, I just published Generation 16 episode 15.
Nice.
General release was last week, and I've been getting a lot of really positive comments on it. So thank you very much for that, and big thank you to the people who are supporting me on Patreon.com. I know a lot of people upped their bids when they found out I got laid off, which is extremely generous, and I can't say thank you enough for that. I started working on episode 16, and one of the things that happens in that episode is the launch of the Super Nintendo in Japan. So to prepare for that, I actually grabbed a bunch of my old cartridges and cleaned them up and started playing them on the Retron 5. And my son, who's 6, noticed Turtles 4 in the stack. And it hadn't really dawned on me while I was getting them all out. It's like Turtles is still a big thing. So this is something he's going to be interested in. So I actually got to sit down and play 2-player Turtles 4, Turtles in Time, with my kid.
That must have been amazing.
And it was so awesome.
Yep.
He picked it up really fast, actually, which is cool. But I mean, he of course he was jabbering the entire time. But it was so cool, because I mean, I've watched him discover games.
It's the best.
Yeah, and it's a cool experience anyway.
Absolutely.
But when I'm watching him be excited and discover a game that I loved as a kid, so I can relate to what he's discovering. It was unbelievable. It was just a great experience. And I mean, all he wants to do now is play that. Every time we come home from like hockey practice, like, can we play Turtles? Can we play Turtles? Hell yeah, we can play Turtles. Don't listen to mommy. We're gonna play Turtles. So anyway,
I mean, it's so funny that you mentioned it. My son and I played Little Big Planet 3 co-op. The couch co-op with your kids is just the greatest thing of all time. I mean, I cannot. Before he was old enough to play, and in a few years when he wants nothing to do with me, it won't matter to me. But any game that offers couch co-op during this window of time for me is like way at the top of the list, because you just cannot have more fun as a parent who loves video games and experiencing them with your kid, as opposed to him watching you or you watching him or her, playing with them is just the greatest thing.
Yeah,
Totally.
and it was a great entry game too, because they don't have a lot of experience with sort of proper console games. It's all iPad and stuff like that. And my oldest daughter, of course, she got in on the action too. So most recently, they've been playing together, which is kind of fun to watch too, because there's a lot of co-op there. You know, they're shouting out sort of strategies to each other. You know, like there's guys coming from over there. I'll go get them. I'll get them. Oh, you get the pizza. You need it more than I do. Things like that. And there's no frustration involved with the controls because it's essentially a 2-button game. So it's been a blast to watch. And what my son keeps trying to talk me into is to set up a webcam and record the footage and actually post it, because he so desperately wants to be on YouTube. So I don't know why, but I might do that too.
Man,
I don't know if I'm going to record
just think
their
about
faces.
that in terms of aspirations for celebrity.
Yeah,
Like, I want to be in movies. I want to be in TV.
I want to be on
I want
YouTube.
to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
All it takes is a webcam, brother.
Thinking of why I'm buying a bunch of Kinder Eggs and just tell them to open them for 2 hours and I'll record
That's
that.
awesome.
But anyway, that's been my gaming experience this week. So we're going to move on to Rich.
Well, I am near the end of The Wolf Among Us, a game that I would never have played had it not been for this show. I remember when Mike first started talking about it. I hadn't even heard about it.
That game's pretty awesome.
Oh, it's great. It's as I said last week, right? I won't rehash it too much, but I knew nothing about the characters, nothing about the universe. It doesn't matter because the story is so good and the decisions you make are so interesting, and the characters are so just so well defined that I'm having a blast. And I'm right near the end, and right now, I mean, it's not really a spoiler, but right now I'm in that giant steel factory, starting to battle Bloody Mary. So, like, I don't know if I'm right at the end or if I don't know.
She's awesome.
You're
pretty close. I'll be very interested to hear what you think of the final sequence, because it is unique and pretty ballsy, and I really liked it. But I'm sure opinions vary on that.
I've been traveling so much, I haven't been able to spend a whole lot of time with it. So I was playing it last night, and it's the kind of game where I don't want to play it too late at night, because I want to really experience it.
Because you'll be scared and have nightmares,
or that
you're afraid of werewolves.
I'm trying to pick and choose my spots because, like I said, I'm not really home a lot these days. But boy, it is just, again, it's terrific. I really enjoy it. I never would have thought I would have enjoyed it, but man, I'm just really looking forward to it. And if you guys ever do that Wolf Among Us spoiler cast, I would love to participate. I don't think you ever did.
I think I'd have to replay it.
Yeah, I can't remember shit right now.
That was my next question.
It, but,
that was the actual reason I wanted to bring it up, was not to talk anymore about it, but really to say, because there are clear decisions you make, like in all these kinds of games, where you can go in different directions or you can react differently to different people. Are you? It doesn't sound like either of you did replay it. It seems like your one experience through was your experience. Would you consider replaying that? And if so, would you do things drastically differently just to see the different things that would happen?
I would like to replay it. It has more to do with the amount of time and the amount of games.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed it, and I would like to see what else happens. Although, honestly, in that game in particular, I found that a lot of the choices I made were kind of reactionary. So
right.
I'm not sure I would even remember the choices I made the first time. I think my gut instinct would be the exact same every time, and I'd end up having the same story.
Yeah, I would purposely... I think if I do play it, it would need to be almost immediately afterwards so I can remember distinctly, oh, I didn't go here, I went there, so I definitely want to go here to see what happens. Or I was purposely silent this time. Now, just because I've been kind of trying to, as much as you can, as Bigby, be a good guy, although I made a couple of decisions. I'm just curious how much different it would be if you just like went over the top as a total, just totally aggressive all the time. It would just be interesting to me to see how it is. So, another game I'm playing, I've played about an hour of it. is Apotheon, or I think that's how you pronounce it, the free
I've
PlayStation
played that
Plus
too.
game.
Yep.
Isn't that the game that CJ described as Greek or something?
It is. It's Greek or Roman.
The Grecian Urn game.
I played the first hour, and the first 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, I'm not going to do it. But then a buddy of mine, Nick West, just said a few times, tweeted about how good it was. So I'm like, all right, it's free. I got it on my PlayStation 4. Might as well go check this out. And I finished like the first main area, and I'm going to keep on playing. It's kind of fun. It's really, I think, sort of well put together. I mean, it's the same kind of game, side-scrolling, hack and slash beat 'em up that you've played 1,000 times. But it's got some interesting, you can craft items, and you got a bunch of different weapons, and you get to get better stuff and things like that along the way. And I'm
So
actually,
you played Guacamelee, right?
it's Guacamelee for dummies is kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
The other game you should play, if you like this game, the game that is better than this game and better than Guacamelee, in my opinion,
Ooh.
is Outland.
Okay.
And that one, I believe, was also free on PlayStation Plus for a while, but I don't think that is the case anymore. But that game is one of my favorite kind of Metroid-style platformers in recent years. That game was very, very good.
Yeah, it's definitely, and again, after playing an hour, I don't know if the game is 3 hours long, 10 hours long. I have no idea. I mean, Guacamelee, by near the end, I literally could not get past parts. I actually brought my Vita to PAX East last year to the Brickbox studio so they could get me past a part.
That's awesome.
Okay,
And then-
maybe you should not play Outland.
Yeah, I'm not good at.
The cool thing
games.
about Outland was you could switch. So there were, in addition to doing platforming, there was almost like a kind of bullet hell Ikaruga kind of element to it, where there would be fountains that shot either blue or red bullets out of them, and you could switch your character's color from blue to red. And if you were red, you could absorb the red bullets. If you were blue, you could absorb the blue bullets. And toward the end, you're switching back and forth while you're jumping in midair to
Ooh.
change polarity as you're going through these fountains of bullets, and it was really awesome. But
That sounds way beyond Rich's skill level.
That is true.
Being honest.
But I'm going to keep playing Apotheon. I mean, obviously the price is right.
Yeah.
But it's much better than I thought it was going to be. And it seems like there's more there, more building and stuff like that. So I've been having fun with that.
Nice.
I continue to grind away on Fire Emblem Second Stones, the old GBA game, and I'm at the point where I don't like anything going on except when I'm battling. Like because I like to not have anybody die, so I have to replay the chapters regularly. So I'm like tapping through the story, the endless text they make you go through every single time, repeat it. And I'm starting to get to the point where I'm sure there are 20 versions of this kind of game that are much better, less text heavy, less, just tactics games, and so I'm sort of at the point where I'm going to keep on playing it, but I bet you I could find a better version of it, so to speak, that would scratch the itch that I've clearly discovered that I love these kinds of games, these, unit-based, turn-based strategy games where you sort of try to match up your best guy against, their weaknesses and so on. I mean, I used to play them a long time ago. It's been a long time since I have, but the whole Fire Emblem Sacred Stones has still got me. I probably played it like 4 hours on the planes this week.
You should get the Fire Emblem that came out for the 3DS.
Yeah,
Because
Awakening.
you can turn that off.
Yeah.
Turn that permadeath thing off. That's how I played it, and it's a great game. Otherwise, go find you some Final Fantasy Tactics or Shining Force.
Yeah, if you find yourself liking that game, there are lots of really good ones and ones that are not particularly difficult that you should look into. I mean, you could play Banner Saga, which is a recent one that you could play on your iPad. You could go back and play the Advance Wars games. You could get really frisky and pick up my favorite strategy RPG ever, which is Jeanne d'Arc on the PSP. That game's really good. There are lots of really good strategy RPGs.
Right, and I have a feeling the one I'm playing is not one of the best. It's good, but and I got it as part of the ambassador program. It's not like I even paid money for this thing. So
Yeah, so again, the price is right.
Man, the price is right on all Rich's games.
That's right. That's right.
Why do we have you on here? You never buy anything. You just play free games.
Well, the only other game I'm playing a lot of, and I promised I wouldn't talk about it for long, is NBA 2K15. I am in the second round of the playoffs. I have a weird version of the Brooklyn Nets, and the last couple.
Weird version of the Brooklyn Nets.
Well,
That's
I
a good
traded
question.
I traded most of the guys away. So like,
Okay.
whenever people watch me play, they're like, "Wait a second, none of those guys are actually on the team." I'm like, "Yes, I know. That's the whole point. That's why we're in the second round." But I've actually streamed a couple of the last playoff games that I've done, and there not a lot of people, but there's probably 10, 15, 20 people or so at various times who have popped in, and we're sort of having fun watching me do that. And of course, as is I'm wont to do when I stream sports games, I tend to get the yips, and I wound up losing Game 2 of the Eastern Conference semifinals to the Bulls. Derrick Rose just went off on me, so now all of a sudden I find myself down. Well, I'm tied 1-1 heading to Chicago, so I'm a little concerned about that. I don't want to lose in the second round. That would be God embarrassing. But I'm doing that when I'm home at night, a few nights a week, and trying to get through to the playoffs. So that's been kind of fun. NBA 2K15. I mean, I know you're a big fan of it, Mike.
It's fantastic.
It is. Pete Dodd has his destiny. I got my NBA 2K15. It is just the game. If I got half hour, 45 minutes, I will go and I will either play my GM or I will play my player. It is just awesome for those two modes. So
The real problem is that Brooklyn Nets logo. Okay, I like the whole.
Wow, did that knock Mike right out of the call?
I guess so. He's a graphic design guy. That's his thing.
Every time he gets angry about art of any sort, always when his connection falls apart. Somebody's listening to us.
That or the iPad
Perhaps
falls
control.
over. One or the other.
So much for that net neutrality win this week.
Hmm.
All right, well, this is going to be fun to edit now because Mike's continuing to talk and record on his track, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure whatever he's saying is fascinating. So while we wait for him to come back, let's move on to Twitter. And get some of these out of the way here. Oh wait, there's one from Rich Grisham. I'm not reading that one. We actually read that last week.
That guy's a jerk. It's actually a new one, but he's still a jerk. So
Jesus. My
There
iPad
he
just
is.
reset for no
There
particular
he is.
reason. It just
We were-
reset.
We were kind of speaking about the fact that every time you get on your high horse when it comes to anything like graphic design,
Yeah.
it's usually when your connection goes to crap.
Yeah. Apparently Jay-Z knew I was talking shit about his logo, and all hell broke loose. It's just the word Nets in the shield. They stretched it. It's screwed up. It's terrible. The typography on that is awful.
the Nets, as a longtime Nets fan, I can honestly say they have never had a design or logo or color scheme that I found at all appealing. The
That's
only
true.
reason I like them is because they were one of the only two teams that were brave enough to use the word New Jersey in their name.
Along with the Devils. That's
Along
it.
with the
Just them
three-
and the Devils.
Along with the three-time Stanley Cup champion Devils.
Jesus,
So
here
I
we go.
have been a fan, and when they moved to Brooklyn, I
God, I
sort of
hate
had to make
Devils.
that decision. I could either like no one in the NBA or change allegiances, which is just weird, or since they only moved like 7 miles away and I could still, in theory, go see them play, I just kind of stuck with them.
It's better than their previous logo, absolutely. But it could have been awesome, and it is not awesome.
It is
kind of
not.
shitty.
It is not awesome
No way.
by
Yeah.
any stretch. I agree.
All right, I feel like when CJ loses control of the show is kind of where we
Let's
are
talk
now.
about some typography, Greg.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's
Let's
not.
get into kerning.
Oh no, let's talk about the RBI baseball, the new logo. Mike loves that one.
Ugh. The one that they
That's,
didn't even bother to center
Didn't
properly.
even center it. That was the best.
It's
Looks like it's being
atrocious.
made by HB Studios this time.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
well, it'll be excellent then.
Well, if the golf club's anything to go on,
It'll be better than terrible. We know that.
there you go. Let's tackle some tweets. Hacker alias RWeba. How do you choose which platform to buy multi-platform games on?
If it's cheap on the PC, I get it there. If
I
it's not, I usually get it on the PlayStation.
yeah,
What are you doing
I almost always go. These days, like today, 2015, I pretty much go PS4 all the way. Just because that is my main console. Whereas last generation, it was 360 all the way. I don't think I bought
Yeah.
any multi-platform games. On on the PS3 last year, and I know I haven't bought any multi-platform games on the Xbox One. It's been all PS4 for me.
I started last generation. I started buying everything on 360, but then I think I had 4 red rings. So it's kind of like, as long as the games are similar on both, I'm getting PS3 versions, and then that's just carried over to this generation. It's PS4 all the way.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a computer.
That kind of soured me on the 360 as well. The same
yeah.
thing.
But at first, man,
yeah. I was in the thing that kept me on the 360 once I had my first 3 red rings was that it sounds silly, but the Madden League that I was in was all based on the 360, and I did not want to lose that, so I kept on getting replacement 360s.
That's a totally legit reason. Hacker alias Night Attack 09 asks, should I buy a Retron 5? It's now $140 in Canada. I want it more for my small NES, Super Nintendo collection, and GBA games. I don't know if you guys have an answer for this because I don't think either of you have them.
I do not.
Or old cartridge collections.
No. Nope.
But I do, and at the risk of the wrath of friend of the show, Kevin Larrabee, the Back of My Play podcast, who hates the Retron 5 because original hardware is always better, I will agree. It's really nice to have a Retron 5, so you don't have to pull out all that original hardware. Just plug it in via HDMI, plug in the game and go. And especially if you have one of the old controllers, it works great. Which is how my kids were playing Turtles this week. Hacker Alias and I First One. Have you played a game with a better New Game Plus than Resident Evil 4? Have either of you guys played Resident Evil 4?
I have.
I did.
Did you play New Game Plus?
Mm-mm.
No, that requires finishing it.
Yeah, see, I've never finished it either.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a bust.
I think I've played the same 2 or 3 hours of Resident Evil 4 7 times. Maybe.
Yes. Yes.
Every time it's like, oh, this game's really good, and I'm dead, and I'm dead, and I'm dead. Okay, I'm putting this game away.
And it does not control like any other game. So I keep dying over and over again. I can't. When games purposely play differently than any other game, I applaud their desire to be different, to foist their vision upon me, but I also do not feel obligated to try to teach myself to play a game completely differently than any other game that I play.
Right.
Interesting. Hacker Alias Nace9? Sure. Why do people care so much about Metacritic when it comes to games? I never hear anyone talk about it for music or movies. I think this could be interesting. Why do people care so much about Metacritic? Do people care so much about Metacritic?
The only people I ever hear talking about Metacritic are critics.
Mm-hmm.
And people talking about critics complaining about Metacritic.
Right.
I hate the fact that a bunch of reviews that I've written over the last 5-6 years are part of Metacritic because I don't like that. I don't.
Why?
I don't want to be. I don't know. It's weird, but I don't want to be the guy who, and I'm not. Like it's.
Well, look, I don't understand why Metacritic is the one that gets all of this vitriol for this, as if before Metacritic existed, people couldn't add up scores and divide by the number of reviews to begin with.
To be fair, most people couldn't.
Math existed before Metacritic.
Right, but the last few years we've heard plenty of stories where people don't get paid bonuses if their Metacritic score is not a certain level, or even with.
Yeah, but that is not your responsibility as a reviewer.
No.
You didn't cut that deal.
That's correct. It's really for the bad games because like NBA Live has been terrible the last couple of years, and I don't like having to give low scores.
I don't like having to play shitty games, and so I appreciate when people give low scores. Like, for example, The Order, I don't begrudge anyone giving that game a shitty review because I would much rather feel like I was a constituent of the reviewers than the other way around. Like, when they make apologies for the company, I feel much worse about it than when they deliver something that is a more critical, kind of hard-hitting review, in my opinion.
Well, and it's because the Metacritic scores for sports games, for example, are a big part of it. Like if you ever hear when I get to interview them and bring them on, they refer to the Metacritic. Like that is a big part of how they measure themselves. And when the game is not good, and you know that people have, worked hard on it and have poured time and heart and soul and crunch time and stuff, and just for many different reasons, they're not able to make it all come together. That's just, it's not fun to do that from a consumer perspective. Of course, I mean it totally makes sense. But I would rather, if I'm doing a review, I would rather it not be part of the Metacritic menagerie. I'd rather it just be a review.
But as a reviewer, you should be representing the consumer more than that company.
But I think what you're really saying here is that I think we're talking about two different things, because I think Mike's absolutely right, but I totally understand where you're coming from, Rich, especially speaking to someone who's in development. You feel terrible that publishers in particular have set up these contracts. Although I don't know how prevalent they are anymore, but maybe they are.
Right.
Where, Metacritic is your... Reviews in general are your measure.
It's a ridiculous quality deal to make, by the way.
It's not Metacritic's fault. It's not the developer's fault. It's not the consumer's fault. It's the publisher. And yes, the developers have signed those contracts, but we've talked about this before. We talked about it a little bit last week when we were talking about Peter Molyneux. You say what you got to say to get that money in order to get your vision out there. And no one sets out to make a bad game, obviously, which is why it's such a ridiculous contract in the first place. But the thing is that, as a reviewer, you should be serving the reader, and it's terrible that you're even, or any reviewer is put in that position where they feel like someone's job hangs in the balance based on what they're writing, because that's an awful feeling. It should be totally based on performance. Right?
You probably shouldn't even know about it. Is there any reason that you should even know that their bonus was tied to the Metacritic reviews?
Well, the only one that I know is the big story. Obsidian, right. That's the only one I know. But what I do know is that the people who make these games are incredibly attuned to what their Metacritic score is. It is a big deal, and they always reference
it. It's just weird. Like the Obsidian thing, so they missed it by 1 point in Metacritic and didn't get their bonus, and everybody wants to be angry at Metacritic for that, and I think, well, fuck you. You missed it by a point. You agreed on these terms on something that is completely subjective that you have. I mean, there's no way you should make that deal. That's a ridiculous deal to make. It is more ridiculous than tying it to sales numbers. At least sales numbers would make sense.
Well,
tying it to the Metacritic
numbers are
average is
a more
ridiculous.
fair metric.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I gave you money to make me a product that makes me a profit. And if you didn't make me a product that made me a profit, then screw you.
Right.
I think...
But it's the problem is that human nature takes over. It's like what you're saying, Rich. I mean, you're interviewing some of these people, and in a perfect world, you separate church from state, and you interview these wonderful people who work really hard on these games, but you still want to serve your reader and say, well, a bad game is a bad game. But the problem is, for most of us, human nature, I don't want to screw these people over when I know this, which really you shouldn't know it is the problem.
That's right.
Is what makes it an issue.
And making games is very hard, and I'm not excusing it, right? I mean, basically, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to say if the game is terrible, but I somehow don't want to, I don't want it to directly negatively, make people feel bad. I mean, I just don't. Yeah. But obviously, that's not the world that we live in. So if I accept the offer to take a review, I have to understand that. The nice thing is, there's no hiding, right? I mean, if I were to give NBA Live, an 8, I would get, crushed. Right. So, the simple fact is, in the world we're living in today, where reviews really don't matter, like they don't even come close to mattering like they used to, because anybody who cares about a game knows infinitely more about a game when it comes out now than they did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? So that's the sort of the irony of Metacritic, is that, in my opinion, and I write reviews. Granted, I write less than I used to, but I write reviews. But I think they are of exponentially less value today than they were even 3 years ago. And I don't think in a couple of years they'll matter at all, which is why I think Metacritic is sort of this weird, archaic thing that it's weird
It
that
is
anybody
definitely weird. I mean, and if you are tying your bonus on, not just the concept that it's based on these subjective reviews, but you also know that Metacritic is aggregating such, awesome sites as multiplayer.it and Game Chronicles and Totally 360 and Gaming Excellence and Spazio Games and like all of these fucking sites that nobody has ever heard of ever. I don't know why you would make that deal.
And some people take glee in writing negative reviews, and some people love to make reviews out to be this incredibly complex, just overly ridiculous process, where the reality is, anybody that can put a few sentences together that has any experience in video games can write a review 90% as good as anybody out there. Yeah. Anyway, it's just.
But some people also love to give companies the benefit of the doubt because their PR person was really nice to them or bought them a drink or whatever, too.
Which, to be fair, is the PR person doing their job.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. Right. And I mean, that's the situation we're in, and it's the exact same in the movie industry and the music industry. It's all like that. We all know about the gaming industry more, not because the gaming industry is more open, but because that just happens to be what we pay attention to. But I will say that getting rid of review scores is not the way to fix it.
No. And I do also look at Metacritic for movies and music. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like it's
Rotten Tomatoes.
As big a deal. Rotten Tomatoes is huge.
Go by Rotten Tomatoes to make their decisions on whether they go see a movie. Period.
I wonder if anybody who's not into video games and into the whole review culture, whatever that is, even knows what Metacritic is. Like, mom and dad who buy a game for their kids probably don't even know what Metacritic is.
Well, hell, they're dealing with store clerks more than anything else.
I think Metacritic serves it. I think Metacritic exists just so the 30 or 40,000 people that really care about it can talk about it, honestly.
Sure. I mean, speaking as someone who also ran fan sites back in the day, I mean, not necessarily Metacritic, I think it was Game Rankings, but you're talking about all those sites you've never heard of. That's a badge of honor. You're being measured along with these other. It's way more inside baseball. It's way more important to those people than it is to anyone else. It's important to publishers, it's important to developers, and it's important to the people who write the reviews. I think the only thing that Metacritic doesn't do right has more to do with all these broken-ass review systems that are all over the place. You have companies that aren't reviewing games, aren't putting out review scores, which I think does not help their readers in the least. You have
they want you to read the text, man. Read my text.
You have places like Polygon that are doing their shifting review scores, which isn't helping anyone as far as I'm concerned.
I'd rather they do that than not. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it, but
But I think what you really need to do is everybody needs to take a hard look at their review scale and adjust that. Because the out of 10, which is usually essentially out of 100, everybody immediately runs back to school and thinks, okay, 50 is a bad grade, right?
Yeah.
So it means anything below that 5 is a fail, which really is not how a review scale should be. But the problem is you push average up to 7, 7.5, 8, and then if you're not getting 9s everywhere, your game's a failure, right? Which is so stupid because suddenly 9 and 10 are supposed to cover this broad spectrum of anything that's not crap. What you need to do is get down to like an out of 5 or even an up and down. I mean, I actually really liked the way Kotaku used to do it, of all places, which is just like buy it or don't buy it.
Yeah.
I think it's worth buying. Great. That helps me. And I might not read your review. I might. But I go in and I see that big green buy it. All right. I know they like this game. I know they think it's worth my money. And that's what a review is supposed to be. So.
I'm with you.
Let's do one more before we call it quits tonight. If I can find my spreadsheet again.
You got so fiery there, Greg. Pick another one that's going to rally you up.
The hell out of me.
Turns me on.
Hacker Alias, The Real Devance. In light of the Order 1886's short gameplay, what game can you recall with a short gameplay time that you absolutely loved?
Oh, a lot of them.
Portal.
I mean,
Portal, great example.
Yeah, Portal 2, Brothers, Tale of Two Sons is
Portal
amazing.
2 was pretty long, wasn't it?
It was longer than Portal.
Sure.
Yeah. Portal was really short.
Yeah.
But Portal 2,
fantastic.
I mean, it was a $60 game, I think.
You guys, by the
relatively
way, answered this question last week, but I'm glad to be here to answer it again.
speaking.
Well, that's why I read it again. Boy.
I have no problems with short games. I very often prefer short games to longer games, so the list could be pretty long for me. Like Journey was pretty short. Flower was pretty short. I loved both of those games.
Actually, one I played recently on the 3DS, Zeo Drifter from Renegade Kid, was a great little Metroid clone that wasn't more than a couple hours long, but it was
Yeah.
exactly the right length. You know, easy
Yeah.
to pick up and play. Felt like I accomplished something every time I played it, and it was over in the perfect amount of time.
Yep.
I'm with Mike. I love a nice short game. I mean, we're all at various points in our lives, and sometimes a nice focused experience is infinitely better. Now, doesn't mean, I mean, like Mike, when you first started talking about the order, right? I mean, there's room for everything. I mean, I love Far Cry 4. That was fantastic. Played it for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And-
mean that's the thing with a story-based game. It's better if it's shorter because
Yes.
no one can sustain a story over 9 hours of
That's
game.
right.
It just doesn't work.
Yep.
Not to mention, as games have gotten more cinematic, you're trying to use the same sort of cinematic tools where you're trying to build tension, and have a payoff. And the thing is that if you build the tension and then you go do 40 mini side quests,
Yep.
it's gone,
Yeah.
right? So, not that those games are bad, but yeah,
No.
it's, you try a cinematic story in that situation, and it doesn't always work all that well.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
Pete said it great last week. He wants all the experiences. Give me a short, focused linear game. Give me
For
a
sure.
giant sandbox.
Absolutely.
Give me everything in between. That's the whole point. You
Let
know?
me choose
Sure.
the experience I want.
Yep.
Yep. So there's a place for all those games.
Mhm.
Right on.
Oh, I'm with you, dog.
Who's doing the second part of the outro tonight? You ready to do it, Mike? You down?
Nope.
No? Okay, I guess I'm going to stumble my way through the whole
I'm
thing.
going to do the whole thing. I'm going to
Someone
sit
gonna
here
say
with a
cheap for me?
smug
Rich?
grin.
Rich?
Rich will do that.
You're up. You're saying cheap,
All right. I
Got
love
it.
it.
if I get that far. It's going to be rough. And that'll do it for our show tonight. Thank you for listening. If you would like to subscribe, see, I'm already skipping right to Phil's part.
Man, what are you doing?
We've got, I'll tell you what, if you want to follow the Player One Podcast online, you can do so at playeronepodcast.com, where we have a blog where you'll read about our show and also about my show, Generation 16, along with the odd Sega CD blog post. There's also a message board over there. Our forums are one of the best places in the internet to hang out. We have some great forum members. We have some not so great forum members. I'm not going to name who. You come
We have
find
some
out.
real douchebags.
We do. Mostly hosts, but
You will
no,
never
it's an active
find
forum.
a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Amen, brother.
hmm
While you're there,
That's from Star Trek. R.I.P. Leonard Nimoy.
Star Trek? Yeah, wow, man, poor Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Hey,
He's 84.
I was
I'm
going to
gonna say,
say.
I hope to live into my mid-80s.
Exactly. If I have a run like Leonard Nimoy did,
Yeah.
I'll be doing all right.
I love it when someone's like 94 years old. That's such a tragedy. Really? It was a tragedy that he was pooping his pants for the last 12 years,
Oh.
sure, but to punch out at 94 seems kind of okay.
We're really gonna.
Or
we're really
84.
gonna make light of Galvatron's death. What the hell? Man? While you're
What were
there,
you saying?
you can
Something
subscribe
about a podcast?
to the Player One Podcast. Also, if you like what you've heard tonight, and who wouldn't, you can go over to patreon.com/ I think it's Player One Podcast. Go look us up on Patreon. We're there. You can support us with your hard-earned dollars, which will help us to continue bringing you a show every week, usually with one or two of the original hosts, and Rich Grisham, the Rich Grisham Player One Podcast. Yeah, you can support us, help us pay for our bandwidth and all that fun stuff. And you can go to the iTunes Music Store, and you can subscribe to us there. While you're there at the iTunes Music Store, you can spend $1.99
Cheap.
right on for the Player One Podcast app.
Can't
Gives you
believe you wouldn't
one
let me do
touch.
that part, you
See?
dickhead.
Nice. All our episodes are available for streaming, all 434 of them.
Wow.
Right? Available for streaming. You can also contact us through that app, not via voicemail, but email, Twitter, all that fun stuff. Our Twitter handle, @P1 Podcast. You can also get that on the Amazon App Store, Amazon Android App Store, whatever. You can get the same type of thing for $1.99 over there. For
Also cheap.
your crappy Android device. I had to work on one of those tonight. My mother couldn't figure out how to make her tablet work, and it was just a nightmare. I think that's it for tonight. So you can follow me on Twitter at Sewart, S-E-W-A-R-T, and of course check out my show, Generation 16, at generation-16.com. Mike.
Sir.
Thank you for being here tonight. It's so nice to have you back.
I'm sure it was a delight.
It was.
It was for me.
It was for a lot of our listeners. Our listeners have been
Glad to be here.
asking for you.
Yes.
Well, they have dubious taste in humans.
Well, I mean, you probably reminded them why they shouldn't have been asking, but nonetheless.
I think that's probably true.
Thanks for coming, Mike.
Sure.
It's great to have you back. Richard Grisham.
Yes.
Answering the call of duty once again at the last moment because Phil couldn't be bothered to show up.
Love it.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming and hanging out with us again this week.
You're very welcome. I wanted to mention real quick that a week from yesterday, today's Sunday, so this comes out.
We are
anyway,
publishing this on Tuesday.
On Saturday, March 7th, we're doing a panel at PAX East, the Press Row podcast about the sports games at a crossroads, and Mike Phillips' best friend Kevin Larrabee will be on the panel.
And what does that mean?
Kevin Larrabee and his pecs.
Yes.
I love Kevin Larrabee. I don't know what you're talking about.
As well as Sumit Sarkar and TJ Lowerman, and also super special guest Garnet Lee will be on the panel as
neat.
Well.
Wow.
So
the Dallas Scrambler.
Yes, we are going to have a lot of fun. It is Saturday, March 7th at 4:30 p.m. at the Bumblebee Theater, PAX East. A lot of Player One love at PAX East. I've been there the last couple of years. A lot of fans around. So if you are around and find yourself looking for an hour and a half of incredible sports game discussion, or you just want to see Kevin Larrabee or Garnet Lee in person, go check us out. It'll be fun.
The order 1886 is to games what the Fast and the Furious is to movies.
I think that's a great.
It's not very good, but you might have fun playing it. So
there
why
you go.
not?
And speaking of Kevin Larrabee, I was actually on the latest episode of Back on My Play because it's been like a month, so it was my turn to be back on again. We talked about Mega Turrican, among other things. So go check that out. Mega Turrican, pretty neat little game. Richard, tell the good people where they can find you when they're not at PAX East.
You can find me on Twitter at Rich Grisham.
It's easy enough.
Mm-hmm. And
of course, to check out the Press Row podcast.
Yes, that would be
Even
great.
if you don't like sports games, maybe they'll convert you.
Yeah, maybe, or at least just click on the download button. That helps, if nothing else.
That helps Rich out.
Does.
All right. I think that's an episode, guys.
Love it.
Damn near.
Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody who's listening. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.